The endless landscape of the Mojave Desert mirrored an eternal struggle between nature and destiny. Under a sky streaked with dusty twilight hues, Lyra, a free-spirited woman with a past shrouded in secrets, trudged along the barren trails, her heart heavy with memories of a once-cherished promise. In her solitude, the winds whispered ancient legends of shapeshifters and lost loves, echoing the voices of generations that had danced with darkness and light. Every grain of sand was a story, every gust of wind a revelation. Lyra's path was not one of mere chance. It was a tapestry woven by fate and defiance. Born into a lineage where power intermingled with pain, she had learned early that freedom was both a blessing and a curse. Her ancestors, scattered across the modern, bustling streets of America's urban sprawl, had concealed their true natures behind masks of normalcy. Yet, even among neon-lit cityscapes, the pulse of the wild could never be entirely silenced. The modern world, with its towering steel and glass, was but another arena for the eternal struggle between the primal and the civilized. On one particularly enigmatic evening, as dusk threatened to engulf the last vestiges of daylight, Lyra found herself sitting atop a crumbling rock formation overlooking a deserted highway. Her mind, a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts, often revisited the memories of childhood, a time when her mother's tales of mysterious alphas and the beauty of the untamed wilderness ignited a longing for adventure deep within her soul. But those stories came with a warning: the strength that comes from power may entrap, and love, when entwined with the supernatural, can demand sacrifices no mortal heart is prepared to bear. The silence was suddenly broken by a low, resonant growl that seemed to vibrate from the core of the earth. Lyra's pulse quickened as her eyes scanned the horizon. Emerging from the shadows was Zev, an enigmatic alpha whose presence sent shockwaves through the very air. His eyes, brilliant and dangerous, glowed with a ferocity that belied his human guise. It was said that Zev bore a curse, a malediction passed down through generations that chained him to a destiny of solitude and perpetual hunting. Yet, with every step he took, his magnetism challenged the very laws of nature and mortal restraint. Lyra, Zev's voice rumbled, both tender and commanding, as if summoning long-lost echoes of forgotten oaths. "You cannot hide from what you are meant to be." Her response, caught between fear and fascination, was a whisper against the roar of the desert winds. "Zev, why do you keep following me? I've fought for my freedom for as long as I can remember." The confrontation, raw and riveting, set the stage for a relentless pursuit, a chase not only through the barren wilderness but through the labyrinth of secrets, betrayals, and sacrifices. Zev's eyes held the weight of centuries, and his words carried the burden of an unyielding legacy. His declaration was more than a claim. It was an invitation into a world of passion and peril, where every heartbeat could trigger an avalanche of betrayals and revelations. Their conversation wove through the fabric of nightfall as the shimmering constellations bore witness to their evolving tension. Zev revealed slivers of his tragic past, a curse that turned every moonlit night into a battleground for his soul. Meanwhile, Lyra's guarded demeanor began to crumble, revealing an inner turmoil stirred by conflicting emotions, the lure of a forbidden connection and the terror of relinquishing her independence. Flashbacks cascaded in Lyra's mind, a childhood spent hidden in the margins of a family steeped in mystery, secrets whispered in the dead of night, and promises made under star-crossed skies. These recollections intermingled with the present, drawing her irresistibly toward a truth she had long feared. Every revelation about her heritage came with a cost, a debt paid in tears, scars, and the perpetual battle against destiny. As the night deepened, the desert became a stage for clandestine meetings beneath ancient canyons and midnight rendezvous in abandoned urban streets. The narrative of their lives took on a cinematic cadence, a blend of exhilarating chases, heartfelt confessions, and the intoxicating interplay of power and vulnerability. Amid the thriving tension, Zev's words resonated with an almost desperate need for redemption. "There is a truth hidden in the depths of your blood, Lyra. A secret that binds us, not only in suffering but in the possibility of liberation." Yet resistance burned in her heart. "I refuse to be defined by the sins of my ancestors, or by a fate that someone else wrote for me," she declared, her voice firm, echoing through the stillness. Her defiance was palpable, a beacon of light against the backdrop of a predestined darkness. The desert, with its ageless dunes and silent witnesses in the form of gnarled cacti, bore silent testimony to the intensity of their exchange. Conversations were interjected with long, meaningful silences where neither party spoke, each lost in a reverie of their intertwined fates. The raw vulnerability shared between them was tinged with the imminent threat of betrayal, a secret lurking beneath the surface, waiting to disrupt the delicate balance between love and duty. In the following days, Lyra navigated a dual existence. By day, an unassuming woman blending into the urban mosaic, and by night, a reluctant warrior confronting the shadows of her past. Her every step was a dance on a knife's edge. She sought answers within cryptic diaries hidden among relics of her ancestry, and in whispered conversations with those few who dared to trust the legacy of their bloodline. Her journey led her to opulent mansions where the elite harbored their dark secrets, and to hidden enclaves deep within bustling city streets, where the supernatural coexisted with urban decay. Amid the cacophony of the modern world, the murmurs of the old continued to resonate, stories of forbidden love, betrayal, and the eternal struggle for redemption. Here, in the heart of America, the juxtaposition of contemporary ambition and age-old superstition birthed a narrative rich in conflict. The rise of industrial might and technological wonders could not erase the primal hunger for power and control inherent in all living beings. As Lyra delved deeper into the labyrinth of her own identity, she uncovered clues that hinted at a lineage cursed to never know peace. Secret meetings with enigmatic figures in smoke-filled rooms, cryptic symbols etched into weathered walls, and the desperate pleas of a mother long gone were all pieces of a puzzle she was determined to solve. Each clue served as a stepping stone towards both liberation and a confrontation with her own shadowed history. The tension between Lyra and Zev escalated with an intensity that defied the boundaries of the human heart. Their interactions were punctuated by moments of electric silence and charged declarations, promises laced with both hope and the sorrow of inevitable loss. In a particularly charged encounter within the labyrinthine corridors of an abandoned building in downtown Los Angeles, Zev's voice faltered as he confided in a moment of vulnerability, "I have seen the destruction of love, the ruin of family, all because of the chains that bind us to a cursed destiny. Yet here you are, defiant, a flame in the cold night." Lyra's reply was equally impassioned, her eyes blazing with both determination and a glimmer of compassion. "And if I step into your darkness, will I be consumed, or will I find the light that saves us both?" Her words, though tentative, carried the weight of a soul desperate to reconcile the past with the promise of change. Their journey, however, was not without its formidable adversaries. Shadowy figures from rival factions of the shifter community, driven by envy and old vendettas, lurked in the peripheries of their meetings. The ever-present threat of betrayal seeped into every glance, every whispered conversation, and every furtive gesture exchanged in the night. Friendships were tested, alliances formed and shattered like fragile glass, and each revelation cast a new layer of complexity on the web of familial loyalties. On one fateful night, as a blood-red moon ascended over a cityscape defined by contrasts, gleaming skyscrapers juxtaposed against the decaying relics of a forgotten era, Lyra found herself standing at a crossroads. The luminous glow of the moon painted a surreal picture, setting the stage for a destiny-altering encounter. Zev awaited her at the entrance of an abandoned industrial complex, a relic of America's bygone ambition. His expression was inscrutable, the storm of his emotions carefully contained behind eyes that had seen too much loss and longing. "Lyra," he began softly, almost pleadingly, "inside these walls lies the key to ending my curse, to mending what has been broken for generations. But the cost might be more than either of us can bear." His voice, trembling with both fear and hope, reverberated through the hollow corridors of the building. In that suspended moment, the convergence of their fates felt both inevitable and perilous. The promise of liberation clashed violently with the terror of the unknown, and every instinct screamed to fight for survival. The desert night around them seemed to hold its breath, the silence before the storm echoing with unspoken secrets and unfulfilled destiny. As the tension built to an almost unbearable crescendo, a sudden, unexplained noise shattered the fragile calm, a metallic clang that hinted at the intrusion of an unseen threat. In that split second, both Lyra and Zev were forced to confront not only their inner demons but also the external forces determined to undo the precarious bond forming between them. With hearts pounding like tribal drums and eyes locked in mutual defiance, they braced for the tempest that would decide the next chapter of their intertwined fates. The night held a promise of revelations, betrayals, and a love that could either transcend the curse of destiny or doom them to an existence of perpetual torment. The winds that had carried the echoes of ancient legends now whispered of imminent change, a shift that might forever alter the fabric of their lives and the legacy of their bloodlines. Tension, loyalty, and the hope for redemption wove together in the dangerous dance of survival and passion. With every heartbeat, the narrative grew richer and more volatile, each moment pregnant with the possibility of transformation or tragic sacrifice. The boundaries between enemy and ally blurred as the forces of fate drew them inexorably closer to a destiny that promised both ecstasy and agony. Amid the swirling dust and clamor of a city that never truly slept, Lyra's journey was just beginning. She stood at the threshold, the weight of her lineage and the lure of a forbidden connection promising a tumultuous adventure fraught with peril and possibility. The secrets of the past beckoned from the shadows, and a love unchained by mortal limits dared to rise even in the face of an overwhelming curse. As the first hints of dawn began to tint the horizon with fragile light, the desert and the city whispered a single echoing promise of change, setting the stage for what was to come. In the neon glow of downtown Los Angeles, Lyra's journey took on new layers of complexity. The aftermath of her desert encounter with Zev had shattered her sense of isolation. Now, every shadow in the urban labyrinth seemed imbued with secrets waiting to be unraveled. Back in the heart of the city, skyscrapers towered over ancient neighborhoods, and within these contrasts, generations of families had hidden histories masked by modernity. Determined to understand the cryptic clues scattered throughout her life, Lyra sought refuge in the old library of her ancestral district, a place where dusty books and faded photographs whispered memories of forgotten times. Here, in a quiet alcove away from the hurried crowd, she found a leather-bound journal inscribed with symbols that resonated with the fragmented tales of her childhood. The journal, belonging to her long-lost grandmother, hinted at alliances between mortal and supernatural, of cursed pacts sealed in blood and ambition. Its pages described a hidden lineage of shifters and the turbulent legacy of those who had dared to challenge fate. "Every story has its shadows," murmured the librarian, an older woman whose eyes shone with the weight of untold memories. "Sometimes the darkness that haunts you holds the key to your freedom." Her words reverberated through Lyra's thoughts, cementing the notion that her struggle was more than personal. It was intertwined with the destiny of her forebears. That night, as rain began to trace delicate patterns along the fogged windows of her modest apartment, Lyra sat cross-legged on the worn wooden floor and pored over the journal's cryptic verses. The rhythmic patter of the rain provided a steady cadence to her frantic heartbeat. Within the yellowed pages she discovered the mention of the Binding Pact, a mystical contract forced upon her family by a ruthless adversary from decades past. This adversary, a rival shifter whose malice had fractured ancient alliances, was hinted to still be roaming the fringes of the supernatural world, an echo of treachery that threatened to reignite old wars. As the rain intensified outside, a knock on her door startled Lyra. Opening it, she found Damon, an old friend from her childhood, now an investigative journalist specializing in occult mysteries. His eyes carried equal parts curiosity and concern as he stepped into her apartment. "I heard rumors that you've been digging into family secrets," he said softly, his tone both inquisitive and protective. "There's talk of a hidden society, one that could turn the supernatural world on its head." Lyra hesitated for a heartbeat before confiding, "I've found a journal that belongs to my grandmother. It speaks of a binding pact and enemies from our past who are still active. I believe it holds the key to understanding not just my curse but Zev's as well." Damon's face, lit by a mixture of hope and apprehension, turned thoughtful. "You and Zev are more connected than you might realize," he asserted. "I've been following threads in the occult underworld, and it seems that both your families have been marked by fate for generations. There are forces at play that neither of us fully comprehend." That conversation kindled a new fire within Lyra, a burning determination to confront the secrets that had haunted her bloodline. The next morning, accompanied by Damon's cautious optimism, she ventured to an estate rumored to be the ancestral headquarters of her family. The mansion, tucked away on a quiet street lined with century-old oaks, exuded an aura of faded grandeur, its walls heavy with the memories of laughter, pain, and betrayal. Its intricate iron gate, decorated with mysterious carvings, seemed to shield the truths concealed within. Inside, Lyra encountered a cast of figures whose lives had intertwined over decades. Relatives she had barely known existed now emerged as reluctant custodians of a legacy burdened by guilt and unspoken remorse. An elderly man, his voice trembling yet resolute, recounted stories of forbidden love and betrayals committed in the name of survival. "Our family was deceived by promises of power," he lamented, his eyes glistening with both sorrow and defiance. "We sacrificed so much for a legacy that never truly belonged to us, until now." His confession sent ripples of uncertainty through the gathering, prompting whispers among those present. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows in the corridors, Lyra found herself confronting her own conflicted emotions. In a private conversation with her enigmatic cousin, Celeste, she demanded answers about the Binding Pact. Why did our ancestors choose a path that bound our souls to endless strife? She asked, her tone laced with both anguish and anger. Celeste's response was measured and pained. There was a time when love and loyalty demanded sacrifices that felt inevitable. But our curse came from an act of betrayal, a secret pact sealed by a man whose ambition for power overshadowed all reason. That betrayal continues to haunt us even now. At the same time, Zev, who had been following his own trail of the past, moved through the underbelly of the city where neon lights gave way to shadows of danger and desire. His own journey led him to clandestine meetings with other shifters, figures with fragmented loyalties and hidden ambitions. In smoky back rooms of underground clubs, Zev listened to whispered rumors of an ancient feud between rival packs, a feud that had long ago fractured the community from within. The curse is not merely a personal affliction, warned a gray-bearded shifter whose scars mapped a lifetime of conflict. It is a manifestation of ancestral sins, woven into the fabric of your existence. To break it, you must confront not only your own demons but those that have tormented our kind for centuries. Haunted by these revelations, Zev's internal struggle deepened. His every howl at the moon was a lament for a past riddled with regret and unresolved conflicts. As he roamed the city's deserted alleys, his mind was fixed on the path to redemption, a path that might only be illuminated by the love of someone brave enough to see beyond the curse. His thoughts invariably turned to Lyra and the possibility that their fates were irrevocably linked, a connection that, despite the dangers, could redefine both their worlds. Late that night, as silver moonlight bathed the city in a surreal glow, Lyra convened a secret meeting with her newfound allies at the estate. The air was heavy with anticipation, and the assembled family members and confidants exchanged glances laden with caution and hope. Damon, ever the inquisitor, laid out his findings that intertwined contemporary urban legends with the ancient lore of shifters. The binding pact, he insisted, was designed to control and oppress. Its power stemmed from fear and manipulation. But every chain has a weak link. His words resonated with the assembly, sparking a collective determination to seek a path to freedom. Among the heated discussions, a startling revelation emerged. Celeste produced an old ornate locket that was rumored to have belonged to their great-grandmother, a talisman said to hold the essence of her true self, untainted by the curse. This locket, Celeste declared, is the key to unraveling the pact. Within its delicate engravings lies a hidden message, a map to our salvation and perhaps a way to mend the fracture between our families and the shifters. The locket's mystery captivated everyone, its gleaming surface reflecting both the hope of redemption and the lingering sorrow of an endless battle. Emotions escalated as old wounds were revisited and fresh betrayals challenged the fragile unity of the group. Fractured truths surfaced about a clandestine romance between a mortal ancestor and a shifter, a romance that had set a precedent for the tumultuous love between Lyra and Zev. Love was the catalyst for rebellion, one relative whispered, his tone heavy with melancholy. It can also be the undoing of those who dare to defy fate. The layers of history intertwined with personal ambition underscored the bitter irony that love, so tender and passionate, was entwined with despair and sacrifice. As the night wore on, Lyra's inner conflicts reached a crescendo. In a solitary moment on the estate's balcony, she gazed at the city skyline punctuated by distant thunder, her heart heavy with the burden of inherited sin. The pull between the magnetic darkness of Zev and the promise of liberation from her family's cursed legacy created an agonizing tension. Was her destiny irrevocably bound to the shifter's path, or was there a chance to rewrite the narrative of betrayal and redemption? Her whispered reflection drifted into the night, an appeal to unseen forces that governed both mortal and supernatural realms. Before dawn's first light, a signal disrupted the fragile peace of the reunion. A coded message was delivered through a discreet channel known only to a few trusted members of the supernatural community. Its contents were alarming. A rival faction, long thought dormant, had mobilized with designs to seize control of the binding pact for their own nefarious purposes. The revelation ignited a palpable tension among the gathered kin. The threat was no longer abstract. It was imminent, poised to unleash chaos that might obliterate the tenuous unity forged in the struggle for redemption. In the flickering candlelight of that final meeting, Damon's steady voice broke the silence. "We stand at a crossroads," he proclaimed, "between the world as it is, ruled by secrets and sorrow, and the world that could be, a realm of freedom where our past does not dictate our future." His words were a rallying cry that ignited fervor, inspiring even the most hesitant souls to consider the possibility of forging their own destinies. The night carried promises of both peril and hope as each member of the family prepared for the confrontation that lay ahead. Plans were drawn, alliances reaffirmed, and destinies silently wagered on the possibility of breaking free from the chains of the past. Lyra, standing amidst those who shared her burden and her hope, felt a strange calm wash over her. In that crucible of collective determination, she understood that her journey was not one of solitary defiance but a shared battle against an ancient force that had long ruled their lives. As the meeting disbanded in cautious optimism, Lyra's mind whirled with possibilities. The intricate tapestry of her family's history had revealed both heart-wrenching betrayals and hopeful omens. With the locket securely in her possession and a determination forged in the fires of familial strife, she resolved to confront the rival faction head-on. The binding curse might have been written in the ink of old alliances, but the script was hers to revise, and every heartbeat was a testament to her unyielding will. In the quiet that followed, as the first hints of dawn began to erase the remnants of the night, the city's skyline glowed with the promise of renewal. The undercurrents of magic, betrayal, and clandestine hope wove seamlessly with the urban pulse of modern life, setting the stage for a confrontation that would echo through the annals of time. Standing at the precipice of destiny, Lyra braced herself for what lay ahead, a mix of trepidation and fierce resolve guiding her steps toward an uncertain future. In the wake of the secret meeting at the ancestral estate, tension radiated like heat from a live coal. The revelations of the binding pact and the mobilization of a dangerous rival faction left every heart pounding with both dread and determination. As day broke in a panorama of shifting light over the city, Lyra emerged from the estate's heavy doors with a newfound resolve. Her eyes, still shimmering with remnants of sleep and the weight of her revelations, were fixed on the horizon, where the ghost of destiny and the promise of defiance met in a silent challenge. In her heart, conflicting emotions warred. The desperate need for freedom clashed with the pull of a legacy marred by betrayal. With the ancient locket secure in her grasp and its cryptic message echoing in her thoughts, she knew that the coming days would demand sacrifices and risky alliances. Meanwhile, Zev had vanished into the labyrinthine night, his departure as sudden as it was enigmatic. His silence was an unspoken promise that he, too, was working to untangle the knots of his cursed existence, even if it meant resorting to unconventional allies. Deep in the city's underbelly, in a district where ancient murals decorated brick walls and secrets interlaced with each whispered myth, Damon had assembled a covert network. They met at a desolate warehouse repurposed as a safe house, a place where the old world bled into the new. The concrete floors and exposed beams bore witness to plans that could change the destiny of not only Lyra's family but the entire supernatural order among shifters. Damon's voice, though steady, carried the urgency of impending danger as he detailed intel gleaned from clandestine sources. Our rivals are not merely after the power embedded in the binding pact. They intend to use it to resurrect old hierarchies, to re-establish control over every shifter community across America. Within that shadowed environment, plans were forged with a delicate urgency. Members of various bloodlines, once estranged by ancient quarrels, had come together under a banner of tenuous alliance. Among them was a reluctant but invaluable figure. Jasper, an elder shifter whose knowledge of supernatural lore was rivaled only by the heavy regrets that defined his solitary life. His face, furrowed and lined by years of confrontation with destiny, softened slightly as he spoke. We stand at a crossroads where the sins of our ancestors bleed into our present. To break the curse, we must confront not only our external foes but also the shame and betrayal that have haunted us for centuries. His words struck deep into the collective memory of the group, igniting an inner rebellion against forces that had long dictated their lives. Elsewhere, Zev stealthily traversed the city's neon corridors, riding through alleys scented with rain and motor oil. The urban landscape was as unpredictable as the wild, a meshing of relentless progress and forgotten lore. As he moved, his thoughts turned to the promise he had made to himself long ago, one of redemption and release from the curse that had defined his existence for too long. In an underground gathering of shifters, his presence stirred a charged mixture of respect and fear. When a younger shifter, eyes wide with both reverence and uncertainty, finally asked, "Do you truly believe redemption can break what has been bound for generations?" Zev's response was measured, a blend of hope and solemn acknowledgement. Redemption is not given, it is fought for in the darkness and the light alike. His words resonated in the crowded room, sparking small murmurs of agreement and defiance. Back at the safe house, Lyra sat with a handful of kin and newfound allies who shared parts of her troubled past, a mosaic of secrets and half-truths that were slowly being pieced together. The warmth of a failing overhead light accentuated the intensity of the conversation, every face marked by scars from battles fought both within and without. Celeste, her voice imbued with both sorrow and fortitude, recounted long-held rumors about a hidden chamber beneath the estate, an ancient crypt said to house relics that could help break the binding pact. Our ancestors sealed their fate within that chamber, she explained, her tone solemn. Within its cold walls lies a relic of unimaginable power, a mirror of truth that reveals not just the face of the enemy, but the hidden truth within ourselves. Her words planted a seed of possibility in Lyra's mind, a chance not only to free herself but also to redefine the destiny of both her family and the shifter community at large. The discussion took an unexpected turn when an urgent knock shattered their reverie. The door creaked open, and in strode an emissary from the rival faction, a tall figure cloaked in mystery and silent menace. His eyes were dark as if reflecting the void, and his arrival was marked by an unsettling calm. "I come not as an enemy but as a bearer of warnings," he intoned. His voice, low and hypnotic, carried the weight of uncountable years. "There is a force beyond our struggles, a power that neither side may control. If you continue on this path, you risk awakening something ancient and malevolent, something that could devour us all." A murmur of unease rippled through the room. Damon, ever vigilant, exchanged a meaningful glance with Lyra. Was this an omen, a true warning of an existential threat, or a diversion by those who sought to undermine their fragile unity? With a deliberate cadence, Damon inquired, "And what power might that be, if not the very legacy we aim to dismantle?" The emissary paused, his expression enigmatic, before replying, "The curse itself is but a fragment of a greater darkness that slumbers beneath the foundations of our world. It feeds on secrets and betrayal, and every act of defiance only stokes its hunger." As the emissary's words seeped into the group's collective consciousness, a silence fell, a heavy, contemplative pause that eclipsed the earlier fervor. In that silence, the weight of destiny pressed upon them. Lyra's mind raced as she tried to reconcile the disparate threads of her life, the lure of forbidden passion, the bitter taste of betrayal, and now, the specter of an ancient malevolence. "Can we truly defy not just our past but fate itself?" she murmured to the assembly, a question that hung in the air like an incantation. The safe house became a crucible of raw emotion as allies and kin debated their next steps. Some argued for a swift, aggressive assault on the rival faction to neutralize the threat before it could grow, a risk that might call upon the full fury of supernatural wrath. Others, tempered by the wisdom of old scars and regret, cautioned against a move that could drive the ancient darkness out of its slumber and into a catastrophic awakening. "Every weapon we forge in anger may serve only to open further the gates of perdition," Jasper intoned gravely, his eyes glimmering with the weight of hard-earned lessons. Within this maelstrom of conflicting views, Lyra found herself gravitating toward the idea of seeking out the hidden crypt Celeste had mentioned, a place where the past and the future could converge in a single, decisive moment. "The answers we seek may lie buried beneath the very ruins of our ancestors," she declared, her voice resonating with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "There, in the quiet darkness of forgotten memories, we might find not just the relic that could break this curse, but also the truth about who we are meant to become." Her words, spoken with the conviction of someone who had long borne the burden of uncertainty, kindled a reluctant hope even in the hearts of those who doubted. As plans to explore the crypt began to solidify, the safe house erupted in quiet preparation. Maps were unfurled, ancient texts were scrutinized, and silent prayers were offered to both mortal and supernatural forces. Damon and Celeste teamed up to gather more intelligence on the rival faction's movements, while Lyra, supported by a core group of family and allies, readied herself for the perilous journey back to the ancestral estate. The path ahead was fraught with not only external dangers but also the possibility of internal betrayal, a lingering specter that haunted every clandestine meeting and hushed conversation. In a hushed moment before departing, Lyra found herself alone on the roof of the safe house, gazing out at the awakening city below. The soft luminescence of the rising sun painted the urban skyline in hues of amber and hope. With the locket pressed close to her heart, she whispered a silent vow, that she would not only confront the darkness of her cursed heritage but also reclaim the narrative of her destiny. "I will carve a new destiny from the remnants of the past," she vowed, her voice barely audible against the gentle hum of the early morning. Her declaration was met with a distant rumble, a reminder that while the world stirred to life with possibility, danger lurked in every shadow. Unbeknownst to her, Zev had taken a parallel path, his own journey winding through mysterious, rain-soaked backstreets and secret meeting points known only to those of his kind. In his silent vigil, he recalled the emissary's grave warning, feeling its weight press upon his already burdened soul. His internal conflict deepened. The quest for redemption was not merely a pursuit of personal freedom but a bid to halt an ancient force from overwhelming the fragile balance between light and darkness. As the day advanced, both groups moved with a measured urgency. Lyra's party, with hearts heavy yet determined, retraced their steps back to the estate, a place where echoes of laughter, sorrow, and long-forgotten promises dwelt in every corner. Meanwhile, Zev's shadow merged with the nocturnal pulse of the city, each step resonating with the promise of a future he dared to reshape. The narrative threads of fate were intricately interwoven, and every move was a gamble with destiny, a dance on the precipice of oblivion and salvation. In a series of simultaneous events, the rival factions' forces began to stir. Reports of suspicious gatherings and clandestine rituals in abandoned warehouses and derelict factories reached Damon's ears. Their movements were precise, their intentions as murky as the legend that shrouded the curse. The threat was imminent and unyielding. Every heartbeat of the city served as a countdown toward an impending collision of old grudges and emerging rebellion. The tension escalated as the morning progressed into a kaleidoscope of shifting realities. Lyra's team, armed with ancestral maps and cryptic manuscripts, navigated the twisting corridors of the old estate. Every step was a revelation. Secret passageways revealed portraits of stern ancestors, and forgotten inscriptions hinted at tragedies that had once shattered entire families. In the quiet solitude of a locked chamber, Lyra discovered a mural depicting a celestial battle between dark forces and ethereal guardians. The imagery was both exquisite and chilling, a visual testament to the enduring conflict between light and darkness that had defined her lineage. Her fingers traced the delicate lines of the ancient artwork as she pondered the symbolism. "In our blood lies the power to choose," she murmured. The words echoed softly, like a promise made to herself, stirring a new layer of purpose within her. Each fresco, each relic of the past, provided a glimpse into a history marked by pain, defiance, and ultimately redemption. The estate was not merely a repository of secrets, it was an active participant in the unfolding drama, its walls whispering its own truths and urging its inheritors to reclaim their stolen legacy. Just as the group began to piece together the significance of the clues, a sudden disturbance shattered the relative calm. A frantic call over a crackling radio alerted Damon to an ambush in progress at a nearby safehouse operated by a sympathetic faction within the shifter community. The threat was real and immediate, and every moment counted. Rapid decisions were required, alliances would be tested, and every secret held was a potential weapon or a ticking time bomb. In that charged moment, Damon's voice cut through the static. "We need to reposition now. They're moving faster than we expected. This might be the opening we feared." The immediacy of danger rippled through the assembled group. Without hesitation, Lyra and her allies gathered their maps, relics, and a fragile hope as they prepared to leave the sanctuary of the estate. Outside, the atmosphere had become electric, laden with the premonition of an imminent clash. Each member of the group was shadowed by their own thoughts, a silent prayer for guidance and a promise of undying loyalty to the cause they had embraced. As they departed through a narrow, forgotten corridor that led back to the wider world, Lyra's gaze lingered on the mural one last time, a reminder that every act of rebellion was a step toward redefining fate. The ascendant sky, tinged with the pastel hues of early morning, bore the silent weight of destiny, a pact between the past and the present that demanded sacrifice, courage, and the unwavering will to change what had long been deemed inevitable. In the throes of this critical juncture, as every decision reverberated with the echoes of centuries, Lyra felt the dual pressure of legacy and self-determination. It was here, in this precarious balance of hope and despair, that the next act of their collective story was poised to unfold. A moment where the truths of blood and betrayal would clash with the desire for salvation. Amid the chaos of imminent conflict, every heartbeat was a testament to the potency of choice, and every step carried the promise of transformation. Every decision forged in the crucible of danger would alter the trajectory of lives intertwined by fate, forging a future where the past no longer held dominion over the present. With the rebellion of spirits set into motion and the ancient curse lurking as both enemy and catalyst, the path ahead was illuminated by the uncertain light of dawn. As dusk bled into twilight over the restless city, Lyra and her carefully selected group of allies embarked on a perilous journey towards a hidden crypt rumored to hold the relic capable of unsevering the ancient binding pact. The journey was more than a physical traverse across abandoned backroads and forgotten industrial alleys. It was a passage into the soul of her ancestry. Each step forward deepened the layers of her internal struggle between a predestined curse and the possibility of liberation. In the cool haze of early evening, the group traveled in a battered, yet dependable vehicle through narrow streets where neon reflections danced on rain-soaked pavement. As they wove through familiar urban routes that gradually gave way to desolate outskirts, whispers of a haunted past echoed around them. Every passing landmark was a silent reminder of the lives built and the secrets buried within the crumbling facades of forgotten architecture. Damon, seated beside Lyra, scanned weathered maps and ancient texts for clues that could lead them to the crypt's concealed entrance. His steady tone belied the urgency of the moment. "We're approaching the zone marked on the document, a cluster of abandoned warehouses that once served as the cradle of our family's power." Inside the vehicle, tension was palpable. The dim glow of dashboard lights outlined the determined features of each traveler, reflecting the unyielding resolve in their eyes. There was no turning back. The crypt represented a fragment of the past intertwined with their destiny, a riddle that held promise and peril in equal measure. Their destination lay on the fringes of the city, where modern decay merged with the spectral beauty of history lost to time. Upon arrival, the group was met by a decrepit compound, its exterior scarred by decades of neglect. Massive steel doors, twisted by time and rebellion, guarded a labyrinth of underground corridors. In the charged silence that greeted them, Celeste took the lead, her touch gentle but resolute as she deciphered the obscure symbols etched onto the ancient facade. "These signs are echoes of a language older than any known to us," she murmured, her eyes alight with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "Every marking confirms we are on the right path. The crypt awaits us below, its secrets longing to be unraveled." Stepping cautiously through the threshold, the group descended into a damp, echoing passage illuminated only by their flickering flashlights and the glint of metallic relics embedded within the walls. The journey into the crypt was a sensory immersion, the musty scent of stone mixed with an indefinable energy of bygone eras that resonated in every ripple of the concrete. Damon's steady narration in hushed tones provided context as he detailed the long-forgotten lore of the estate. This place was once the sanctum of power for those who made the binding pact. Legend suggests that its heart harbors a mirror, not just of reflection but of truth itself, a relic that could shatter the chains of our cursed fate. Their movement was measured and stealthy, mindful of possible traps set by rival factions or even restless spirits guarding the crypt's inner sanctum. The walls were lined with obscure murals depicting mythological battles and the duality of human frailty and supernatural force. These vivid illustrations, though worn by time, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly vibrancy as the group advanced deeper into the catacombs. Lyra's thoughts wandered as she ran her fingers along the carvings. Each symbol was a shard of memory, a fragment of history that danced between the realms of legend and raw, unfettered truth. In a shadowy alcove, separated from the main passage by a heavy, rusted gate, Lyra paused. Her hand tightened around the ancient locket that Celeste had entrusted to her, the locket that now served as the key to unlocking the crypt's hidden vault. The intricate engravings on its surface glimmered faintly in the half-light, as if resonating with the cosmic forces pulsing throughout the underground chamber. "It's almost as if this relic is calling to us," she whispered, a quiet declaration that rippled through the silence of the ancient corridor. Suddenly, a low hum of energy surged beneath their feet, and the ground trembled imperceptibly, a reminder that the crypt was not inert but alive with the echoes of long-silenced voices. In that tremor was the promise of revelation, an invitation to confront the intertwined legacies of betrayal and love. Jasper, the elder shifter whose countenance bore the scars of innumerable battles against both external foes and internal demons, cautioned softly, "This place is not merely a repository of secrets. It is a crucible that tests the strength of our resolve and the purity of our intentions." His words lent gravity to their progress, urging them to proceed with both bravery and caution. Their footsteps eventually brought them to a vast, vaulted chamber adorned with elaborate stonework and flickering torches. In the center of the room, dominated by the majesty of ancient architecture, stood an imposing mirror, its surface clouded yet irresistible. This was the mirror of truth Celeste had forewarned about. The mirror, encased in a frame carved with cryptic symbols and entwined vines, emanated a quiet power that commanded both respect and trepidation. Here, in this moment suspended between history and destiny, the relic was poised to reveal the truths hidden beneath layers of accumulated secrets. Lyra stepped forward, her heart a tumult of hope and fear. Every eye in the chamber was fixed upon her as if the very walls had conjured ancient spirits to witness this pivotal moment. Damon's voice, filled with cautious optimism, broke the silence. The mirror is said to unveil not only our external foes but also the inner darkness that shrouds each of us. Through it, you may see the chain that has tethered us to an inescapable fate. As Lyra gazed into the reflective surface, the room seemed to dissolve around her. The mirror's reflection was not of the present surroundings but a montage of fractured memories and visions of a tormented past. Fleeting images cascaded before her eyes, her ancestors locked in bitter conflicts, illicit romances that sparked both hope and treachery, and moments where destiny had slipped through desperate fingers only to be clutched back by relentless resolve. Each vision was both a revelation and a burden, the weight of what had been and the potential for what might yet be. In one startling vision, Lyra beheld Zev, not as the fierce alpha who had haunted her nights, but as a tortured soul wrestling with the demon of regret. His eyes, filled with sorrow and longing, seemed to plead silently for forgiveness, not only from those he had wronged but for himself. The image left her breathless, entangling her desires with the reality of their cursed connection. I must free him, she thought, the determination in her mind hardening like forged steel. The mirror's revelations, while harrowing, offered a glimpse of redemption, a light within the darkness that could only be reached through sacrifice and unwavering resolve. Before long, the reverie was shattered by the sound of distant footsteps echoing through the ancient corridors. The rival faction had discovered their intrusion. In a flurry of hushed commands and rapid adjustments, the group prepared for an inevitable confrontation. Celeste, clutching the mirror's frame reverently, whispered urgently, "We must secure the relic and the knowledge it offers before they breach these sanctified walls." Her voice, though soft, carried the intensity of an oath sworn in the presence of destiny. Damon quickly organized a defensive perimeter, urging everyone to ready themselves for the impending clash. The tension was palpable as the intruders neared. The sound of shuffling footsteps and the clamor of hurried voices reverberated down the stone corridors. Outside the vaulted chamber, a cacophony of uncertainty met the determined silence of the few who had dared to seek the truth. Jasper positioned himself strategically, his presence a silent guarantee of ancestral wisdom and battle-hardened resolve. "They seek to twist the legacy of our kin for their own gain," he growled, his voice resonant with forewarning. "We must protect this place, for it holds the key to mending what has long been broken." The approaching voices crescendoed into a force that threatened to overwhelm the sanctity of the crypt. In that critical moment, Lyra's inner strength surged. She clutched the locket tightly, feeling its ancient energy pulse in harmony with her racing heart. "I will not let our past condemn us to a future of perpetual strife," she declared firmly, the resolve in her tone cutting through the growing chaos. With a swift glance toward her allies, she signaled that the relic, this mirror of truth, must be preserved at all costs, for it was the beacon that could illuminate the darkest corners of their shared history. An abrupt burst of clashing footsteps invaded the chamber's silence, and through the heavy oak doors, shadowy figures emerged. The rival faction, driven by their own dark ambitions, surged into the room with weapons drawn and eyes alight with the fervor of a zealot. A tense standoff ensued, the air thick with the promise of violence and the palpable desperation of those fighting for destiny's favor. The intruder's leader, a figure with a stern, resolute gaze, called out, "Surrender the relic and we shall grant you mercy." His challenge reverberated off the stone walls, igniting a battle of wills as much as arms. Lyra met his stare unflinchingly. "You have no right to dictate the future written in our blood," she retorted, her voice ringing clear amidst the murmur of conflict. "This mirror does not belong to you, it belongs to all who seek to break free from the chains of fate." Her words, spoken with both defiance and a deep-seated hope, became the rallying cry for her allies. In that critical juncture, the room was engulfed in a burst of determined energy. Damon and Jasper positioned themselves between the intruders and the mirror, their posture a silent vow to protect the sacred relic at any cost. As the confrontation escalated, a series of swift maneuvers and deft parries unfolded within the cavernous space. Every exchange was a dance of danger, the flash of steel against stone and the echo of resolute shouts punctuated the tense air. The barrier between the past and present, already fraught with sorrow and regret, was poised to fracture under the weight of clashing wills. Amid the tumult, Celeste's eyes locked with Lyra's, their silent communication woven from years of shared grief, hope, and a mutual promise that the truth would not be buried in darkness. "Hold fast," Celeste breathed as if summoning the courage of generations. For in truth, even the deepest scars can find healing. Time stretched in a vortex of adrenaline and palpable fear, where every heart thundered with the knowledge that a single misstep could unravel not just the fabric of their kinship, but the future of an entire supernatural legacy. Just as the skirmish threatened to spiral into chaos, a sudden, commanding voice resonated through the chamber, a voice that commanded the attention of friend and foe alike. Jasper stepped forward, his presence exuding an authority derived from a lifetime of battles waged against both physical and metaphysical adversaries. "Enough," he thundered, halting the clash in a momentary reverent stillness. "Our destiny is not to be decided by the edge of a blade but by the courage to forge a new path from our painful past." In that breathless pause, the intruders wavered, caught between their hunger for power and the unexpected unification of those who defended the mirror. The speaker's words planted seeds of doubt among the rival faction, and in that opening, Lyra seized a fleeting chance to step forward. With the mirror's surface shimmering mysteriously, she activated an incantation whispered by her ancestors, a ritual meant to channel the relic's formidable power to repel the invaders. The chamber resonated with an ethereal glow that pulsed in rhythm with the beating of every heart in the room. The power emanating from the mirror was not violent in its execution but transformative. Its radiance bathed friend and foe in a light that stripped away deception. For a moment, the smoldering intensity of conflict gave way to a shared vision of what could be if truth and redemption were allowed to guide their fates. A flicker of hesitation passed through the eyes of the intruders as the mirror's revelations wrapped around them like a silken shroud of destiny. Their leader faltered, his earlier commands now a distant echo in the face of an overwhelming, undeniable truth. In that fragile, luminous moment, it became evident that the crypt was not merely a tomb of forgotten lore but a crucible for rebirth. The rival faction, caught in the throes of introspection and vulnerability, began to withdraw, their weapons lowering in tacit acknowledgement of the mirror's power. Damon exhaled slowly, the air heavy with relief and the quiet triumph of preserving what was sacred. Lyra, eyes wide with both wonder and solemn resolve, recognized that this was not the definitive end of their struggle, but a necessary turning point, a convergence of all that had been lost and all that might be redeemed. The intruders retreated into the labyrinthine passages from whence they came, leaving behind a chamber filled with the sound of labored breaths and the palpable shared sense of survival. In the golden haze of dwindling tension, Celeste approached Lyra, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You have not only defied your destiny," she intoned softly, "you have rewritten it, if only for this fleeting moment of clarity." With the mirror's truth now a beacon of hope within the crypt's hallowed walls, the assembled group gathered around it, a silent covenant of solidarity that transcended the boundaries between mortal and shifter. They knew, with a certainty that defied the precarious nature of fate, that this relic held the potential for ultimate redemption, a chance to mend the wounds of betrayal and forge a future unshackled by centuries of malediction. Damon carefully retrieved a fragment of parchment from his satchel, a continuation of the ancient script that had first led them to this hidden sanctuary. His eyes glimmered with resolve as he deciphered the final passage. "In the mirror, seek the truth that binds you not to the past, but to the promise of a new dawn." As the fragile rays of moonlight filtered through a narrow opening high above, illuminating the chamber in a surreal interplay of shadow and brilliance, the weight of the moment pressed upon them all. Every soul present felt a stirring deep within, a collective recognition that their journey was far from over. The mirror's luminescence was a silent promise that while the legacy of blood and betrayal was inescapable, it was also mutable, an ever-changing canvas upon which future generations could paint their own destiny. With hearts brimming with both hope and an unyielding determination to rise above the sins that had long defined them, the group prepared to leave the sanctified vault. Their steps retraced the labyrinth's winding path upward, away from the darkness that had both bound and blessed them. As they emerged back into the cool embrace of the night, the cityscape sprawled before them, a living testament to the enduring struggle between modernity and ancient power. In that moment, Lyra felt more resolved than ever to confront the secrets of her past and to bridge the divide between the fractured realms of mortal and supernatural. She clutched the locket and the sacred memory of the mirror's revelation, knowing that their collective destiny was now irrevocably altered. The crypt had done more than reveal hidden truths, it had kindled a spark of rebellion against fate, igniting the will to reclaim a future defined not by cursed legacies, but by the enduring promise of love and redemption. With a final lingering look at the relic that had united them all in purpose and passion, the group stepped into the unknown once more, their hearts buoyed by the glimmer of a future reborn. The final confrontation unfolded in a place where the past and present collided, a derelict industrial complex on the outskirts of the city, where the architecture bore the scars of both modern decay and ancient resolve. In the twilight between dusk and night, Lyra gathered her allies as they prepared to face the rival faction one last time. The air was thick with a mixture of anticipation and a sense that the final pieces of the puzzle were about to fall into place. Every heart in the room pulsed with the knowledge that this confrontation would decide not only the fate of their cursed bloodline but also the boundaries between destiny and free will. Lyra's eyes, emboldened by the truths unveiled in the crypt and the luminous power of the mirror of truth, no longer trembled with uncertainty. Instead, they shone with steely determination. Her mind replayed every secret discovered, the legacy of betrayal sealed by the binding pact, the painful memories of ancient wrongs, and the revelation that the curse which had haunted generations was in fact a double-edged gift, a test of love, resilience, and the power to choose one's own fate. In the midst of the cavernous interior, under the fractured light filtering through broken windows, Damon reviewed the final details of their counter-strategy. He paced methodically, his every step underscored by the urgency of their mission. Our adversaries believe that by reclaiming the relics of our past, they can rule every shard of supernatural power in this land, he declared, his voice steady despite the gravity of his words. But the truth we now carry is that our past is not a chain, but a stepping stone, a map that leads to the redemption of our souls. His words rippled through the assembled group, inspiring a solidarity that transcended old feuds and resentment. Across the hall, Zev emerged from the shadowed edge of a toppled column. His presence was formidable yet tempered by an emotion that betrayed his stoic exterior, a vulnerability that he had long guarded from a world too harsh to understand. The air between him and Lyra crackled with the weight of unsaid apologies and silent promises. Their eyes met, and in that look lay an unspoken covenant to right the ancient wrongs and break the cycle of accursed destiny. Lyra, Zev murmured, his voice low and earnest, for centuries, I have borne a burden heavier than any mortal might imagine. But today I choose to fight not for my salvation alone, but for ours, so that we might forge a future free from the shadows of old betrayals. The tension reached a fever pitch as the rival factions' forces converged on the complex. Their leader, a gaunt figure draped in obsidian armor embossed with cryptic runes, shouted orders that resonated like a death knell within the cavern. Seize the relics and crush their rebellion, he bellowed, his voice echoing through the dilapidated corridors. The sound was a rallying cry of fanaticism, an echo of historical grudges that had festered for generations. At that moment, Lyra stepped forward, the ancient locket nestled against her heart serving as a talisman of defiance and hope. We will no longer be shackled by the sins of our ancestors, she declared, her words bold and resolute. Our legacy is ours to shape, and tonight, we reclaim our destiny. Her declaration struck a chord within everyone present, igniting a fierce determination to challenge the forces that sought to perpetuate the curse. The ensuing clash was as much a battle of ideology as it was of raw power. In the dim glow of emergency lights and flickering torches, the members of Lyra's cadre moved like a single unified force, each strike, parry, and whispered incantation a testament to their shared commitment to a higher cause. Amid the swirling dust and clanging metal, the mirror of truth, safely reinstalled in a sanctified alcove within the complex, pulsed with a spectral luminance that seemed to bind every soul in the room together. Its glow was a reminder of the revelations that had transformed their understanding of the curse and the possibility of redemption through love, sacrifice, and the unyielding will to rise above destiny. Amid the fray, Celeste's voice rang out above the turmoil. Remember the mirror's message, she cried, her tone laced with urgency. Our future is not written in the errors of the past but in every decision we make now. Her rallying cry provided both solace and motivation, a clarion call that reminded each combatant of the personal sacrifices that had led them to this very moment. As the battle raged, fate intervened in an unforeseen manner. While Zev and Lyra were locked in a fierce yet silent exchange of understanding, a moment where the past was forgiven and the promise of change was embraced, an inexplicable phenomenon began to manifest around the mirror of truth. The spectral luminescence intensified, and from its shimmering surface emerged fragments of visions that coalesced into a single, breathtaking revelation. The mirror did not simply reflect, they transformed. Images of a long-forgotten ancestor, once thought to be but a legend, became clear. A benevolent shifter whose sacrificial act had turned the tide of history and whose untimely demise had sown the seeds of the binding pact. It was revealed that this ancestor had been both the architect of the family's curse and the key to its ultimate dissolution. A collective gasp fell over the assembled forces as the revelation rippled through every heart. In that poignant instant, the rival faction's zeal faltered, as if the mirror's embodiment of truth had cast a powerful spell over even the most hardened warriors. The gaunt leader faltered in his advance, eyes wide with disbelief, and for a moment, the battlefield hushed into a surreal silence. A silence heavy with the weight of destiny being rewritten in real time. Lyra's gaze shifted from the mirror to Zev. "Do you understand what this means?" she whispered, her voice thick with emotion as she absorbed the enormity of their shared revelation. Zev, his eyes glistening with both unshed tears and unyielding hope, replied, "It means that our suffering, our sacrifices, were never in vain. They were the catalyst for change. The curse was designed to be broken not by hatred, but by the transformative power of forgiveness and unity." Emboldened by the mirror's revelation, Damon and Celeste mobilized the group with renewed vigor. "We have the power to dismantle the legacy that has tormented us for generations," Damon insisted, his tone both authoritative and filled with newfound hope. "The relics, our collective will, and the truth we now grasp shall become the instruments of our liberation." His words reverberated across the battlefield, infusing allies with a sense of purpose that transcended the immediate peril. The rival faction, shaken by the unexpected turn of events, began to falter. Some of its members, those who had long harbored doubts about the righteousness of their cause, lowered their weapons in silent contemplation. The gaunt leader, unable to reconcile the mirror's truth with his own dogmatic mission, found himself hesitating. For a precious few seconds, the lines between enemy and ally blurred, and the possibility of a peaceful resolution emerged amid the chaos. It was in that fleeting yet transformative moment that Lyra moved decisively. With Zev by her side, she advanced toward the gaunt leader, her voice imbued with compassion rather than malice. "You have fought under a burden of lies for far too long," she said softly, extending a hand in a gesture that transcended enmity. "Let us lay down the arms that have divided us for centuries and rebuild a future founded on truth and forgiveness." Her words, echoing with the sincerity of one who had known both the depths of despair and the heights of hope, resonated powerfully. The gaunt leader's eyes searched hers, torn between the entrenched beliefs of his past and the undeniable truth presented before him. In that pivotal moment, he slowly lowered his weapon, a silent admission that the path he had been on was one of destruction rather than salvation. One by one, members of his faction followed suit, their faces reflecting the dawning realization that redemption was within reach if only they could choose it. As the tension ebbed away, the mirror of truth pulsed steadily as if it were the beating heart of their newfound unity. The ancestral legacy, once a harbinger of despair, was being transformed into a beacon of hope. The vision of the benevolent ancestor had not only unveiled the hidden chapters of the family's history, but it had also provided the key to unshackling them from the curse. The relics they had pursued so fervently were now revealed as conduits for change, their power rooted in the inherent potential for forgiveness and renewal. In the aftermath of the confrontation, as the dissipating battle cries gave way to cautious yet hopeful murmurs, Lyra and Zev stood side by side. Their intertwined fates, built on both passion and the relentless desire to rewrite destiny, had brought them, and everyone around them, to a critical juncture. "This is only the beginning," Zev said quietly, his voice carrying the promise of a future filled with both healing and possibility. "We have seen that the curse can be undone, not through the chains of vengeance, but through the liberating embrace of redemption." Lyra smiled, a mixture of relief and resolve etched on her face. "I believe we now have the chance to reclaim the narrative of our lives, a narrative where love, unity, and truth triumph over the shadows of our ancestors." Her words, simple yet profound, stirred a collective optimism among those gathered. In that sacred moment of transformation, old wounds began to mend and hearts hardened by generations of sorrow found the first tentative pulse of hope. As the members of both factions slowly gathered, united by the mirror's revelation and a shared desire to create a better future, plans were drawn up for a new alliance, one that would honor the past without being haunted by it. The rivalry that had once threatened to tear apart the fabric of their supernatural community now gave way to dialogue and the promise of collaborative rebuilding. In the twilight of a battered complex transformed by the light of truth, old enemies began to forge new bonds, and a fragile peace took root among kindred spirits once divided by fate. The final moments of the night were spent in quiet conversation and solemn reflection. The mirror of truth, its surface now calm and unclouded, stood as a timeless reminder that the power to overcome one's destiny lay not in the chains of history, but in the conscious choice to seek redemption. Every whispered promise, every cautious embrace, and every tear shed in the catharsis of revelation wove together a tapestry of renewal that would define the legacy of both mortal and shifter for generations to come. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a gentle light on the once forlorn complex, the disparate voices of hope, forgiveness, and unity rose in unison. Lyra, Zev, Damon, Celeste, and even those formerly ensnared by enmity, stood together, bound by a shared conviction to create a future where the past no longer dictated the present. In that breathtaking moment of collective transformation, every heart recognized that the battle for freedom had transcended individual vendettas, becoming a celebration of the human spirit and the power of love to redeem even the most tormented souls. In the hush of the new morning, as the last vestiges of discord melted away into a dawn of promise and possibility, the mirror's silent brilliance bore witness to a singular truth. Destiny is not immutable, it can be reshaped by courage, compassion, and the strength of those willing to rise above their inherited burdens. And so, with renewed hope and an unbreakable resolve, the survivors stepped forward into a future reimagined, a future where every wound bore the potential to blossom into healing, and every end heralded the spark of a new beginning.